T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Coach on Fire Radio.
Welcome again to another edition of your Journey to Success podcast. I'm your host, Kenny Weiss. I'm a life coach, speaker, and author here based in Phoenix. The goal here each week is to create a movement of people who are passionate about learning and growing and wanting real answers. They want more than the superficial buzzwords that are so prevalent out there in this industry, and they want to go deeper. Well, this week, have you ever found yourself saying or doing things just like your parents did? That's what I wanted to talk about, where that comes from and how that plays out in our relationship choices and our own parenting styles. Now, for those of you who are new to this, you can call me on Skype. It's very simple. You won't show up live. The video portion, you won't be here. It'll just be your voice. So just give me a call on Skype. Look for my name, Kenny Weiss. Whether you use an audio call or a video call, either one, doesn't matter. Like I said, the video will not show up here. You can call me with any question, whether it's about tonight's topic or something else. So whatever you want to talk about, make sure you give me a call through Skype, whatever works for you. So what I want to talk about is that parenting dynamic of how we just end up saying and doing things just like our parents, even though we said growing up, I'll never do that. And we find ourselves maybe screaming and yelling at our kids, and it's like, oh my God, that's just like mom or just like dad. And we're literally trying to pull the words back into our mouth, but we can't do it. So we're kind of stuck and kind of wondering where that comes from, why we have that. Well, there's something called the repetition compulsion. It's basically a subconscious pattern in our brain. And really what it is we are trying to repeat something that we went through. It's any sort of experience we've had, and it's an attempt to reconcile it. We're trying to create basically a new ending. So because parenting affects everything we do, and most of us have really, we don't teach anything about parenting. So most of us have unfortunately, well, really all of us. I need to say that. It's all of us. All of us have been subject to poor parenting, not because our parents are bad, but because we don't teach anything. It's just not possible. I hear people say all the time, oh, no, my parents were great. And it's not true. While parents do their best to be kind and loving, they leave marks on everybody. And one of the marks is even people like that who say, oh, no, my parents were great. That's one of the marks. The denial is so high. That's a self-protection mechanism for them. So that is one of the toughest things to overcome is when something like that is happening. So there are basically four things that go on, or four really primary ways that parents are perfectly imperfect. Again, this isn't a show I'm not trying to bash parents, but we just don't teach how to be a parent. So we all do one or all of these things. One of the big ones is the abandoning, rejecting type parent. I'll name them up first. There's the abandoning, rejecting type parent, the possessive parent, the domineering or controlling parent, and the hypercritical one. Now, the abandoning parent, that can be something that they may not even have meant to do. They could have been say your mother was very sick or hurt when you were an infant. Well, she didn't mean to abandon you, but she was sick and hurt. She couldn't be there. Or your father, maybe he worked a lot, or your mother worked a lot. So sometimes, like I said, it's not always choices, it's circumstances. And so you as an infant, or even as you got a little bit older, 7th grade, or even into high school, parents were working so much, you were left alone for long hours. I know that happened to me. Our parents would kick us out at 7 a.m. and say, I don't want to see you till 5 p.m. That was the way. And we would just sit there for hours, bored to death. That's one of the things that's caused all my addictions is boredom. Boredom triggers me. I feel unloved. Now I know after doing all the work, I feel unloved. All these different emotions come up whenever I feel bored. And so I create some sort of chaos in my life because at least it ain't boring. Because I would have to feel that abandonment that I felt as a kid. So that's one of the main ways we go through it is, abandonment or rejection. These simple things like I remember my dad, going to do homework, and I'd come down the stairs and I'd go, Dad, can I get your help with this? And he'd go, okay, what is it you need? Now, my dad never said anything, but just that dismissive nature. He was busy with his own life. He didn't want to have to deal with it. And so that was rejecting. And so I learned real quick, don't ask for my dad's help with homework. Parents being late to pick up their kids. My parents were chronically late, not showing up to events that the kids have. A lot of parents do that. They get so busy with their own life. They see, all these practices and activities as a way to dump the kids so they can go do something else. And so they're never there. That's abandoning and rejecting. So there's so many of these subtle ways that people are completely unaware that either in their own parenting style or in the parenting they experienced is showing up in their life. The other one is the possessive parent. This is really prevalent nowadays. You see this all over. Parents constantly rescuing their children. I see it on Facebook. The parent who's just like, oh my God, I'm in so much pain now that my child's growing up without me. They don't need me anymore. That's a huge red flag. I see posts like that every day on Facebook of parents, mourning the loss of the infant that depended so heavily on them. They're losing possession of a possession. It's not even about the child. It's about their own need to fill their emotional hole. They're possessing the child emotionally. It's feeding them. You hear most parents, why they had kids. It's about this. Oh, I wanted a mini me. Look, it's me. It's all about them. It's about having a possession. Now, again, they are bad people. We don't teach this. So, most parents have kids, so they have this new possession that's constantly, that needs them and wants them and lives their life, dependent upon them. It gives them all this power. And then as the child gets older, they'll control who their friends are or what kind of activities they do. They create an inappropriate bond with the child. They share way too much information with them, whether that's about their relationship with their spouse, or maybe they've been through a divorce. And under the guise of, I'm just telling the truth, I'm going to tell you what a bad spouse your mother or father was. Hey, Jamie, how are you? Why don't you give us a call on Skype if you want to chat and talk about some of this, Jamie? Let me see if I'll pull it up here. So, yeah, give us a call, Jamie, and we can chat about some of this stuff. Sorry. All right. There she is. Hey, Jamie.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing really well.
Okay, let me go ahead and see if I can put this on speaker so I can
All right.
hear you.
I can hear you,
Okay.
so it's coming out really well.
I can hear you too.
So as I was talking about parenting there and the abandoning, rejecting parent or the possessive parent, did any of that stuff sound like things you've been through?
Oh, absolutely. I had a mother that was like very possessive and very controlling in the way, like she was very abusive.
In what ways?
Well, physically, but it really didn't happen. Like, it wasn't as bad until after we got taken away. Like I told you, we were talking about a story that absolutely changed my life. My mom and I were coming home from a counseling appointment, and her third husband was honking the horn. And I looked at my mom. I'm like, who is that crazy person? And we get in the car with him, and he's like, Amy Jo is at the police station. So they leave, and they're gone for like hours, it seemed like. And mind you, in my 10-year-old mind, it was a long time. And my stepdad walks in, and he's like, they're taking the kids. And Kenny, I didn't understand that. I was like, what does he mean? And a short, curly-haired woman walked in, and then this tall guy walked in, and then here comes my mom. And my mom walked in, and she's sobbing, and like they're taking the kids. And I can just remember jumping up and like freaking out. Like, if anybody's ever seen the movie Blindside, where the kid reacts, like that's exactly how I was acting. I was running around the house. I'm not going. The whole car scene where like he's screaming and hitting the window, that was me. And the thing about my mom, like, she allowed men to physically, sexually abuse us. And we would tell her there was never any protection over us girls, you know? And then when the man was no longer allowed to be in the house, she became very physically abusive with me. And I wouldn't let her hit my other sister, my sister and brother, because I just became very protective of them. And so the behaviors that you spoke of, I have definitely experienced that in my life. And just like the abandonment, you know what I mean? I can remember one time, you know, she left for hours with a bunch of pills and was gone and came back banging on the door like some crazy person. And I opened the door, and she starts beating the crap out of me because I said, what? I was terrified.
Wow.
And she had some strange man with her, you know? So she was her behavior was very unpredictable, you know? And, you know, as I was in foster care, we talked about how I just, you know, I got bounced around a lot. And one of the things I deal with as an adult, you know, when people say, Jamie, I love you, and then I feel like, okay, these people just walk out of my life. Like,
yeah.
I don't even matter. So as a parent, like, I oversaturate my children with telling them I love them and, you know, embracing them and complimenting them and letting them know how much they mean to me. And trust me, with my 21-year-old, I've made some pretty big mistakes.
Yeah.
And I feel like God has blessed me to do it over with my 12-year-old. And her and I are really close, and I really enjoy doing life with her. But one of the things that you said is like, you know, a possession. I never even thought of it like that. It's interesting that you said we view them as possession, because I always say, I don't want you to grow up. I'd like you here with me because it fulfills something in me. You know?
Yeah, and that's the danger, because then the child loses their sense of self because they're trying to meet your emotional need. And so then they grow up feeling what's called engulfment or enmeshment, because when a parent has needed so much from a child emotionally, the child just gets overwhelmed. And so they will tend, I mean, that's part of what happened to you. Your mother used you emotionally in many ways through the abuse and different things. And so that's part of why, you know, when people start to try and get close to you, you don't trust it. But it's also, you know, it's one of the things, something I had to realize too, is the way my mom drank, she would be sober 4 to 6 weeks and then in a walking coma 7 to 10 days. So I've had a history of picking people who out of the blue, like especially friends, male friends, for no reason, out of the blue, they're gone. They're just no longer my friend. They disappear.